Wow, what a great opportunity, and thank you so much for having me for the second time. And a big thank you to this group back here for making it possible. So I apologize ahead of time. You're going to hear some Canadian words come out of my mouth, eh? So if you hear process or about or other things, people that Chesterfield couch. I am from Canada, eh? So we're right across the border from Buffalo, New York. The other thing I'll apologize for is trying a little too hard. I get this all the time. People don't say it, but they look at me and they think, oh, he's really trying to look like that superhero I know. He is really trying. And all I can tell you is I look nothing like Batman. So, terrible joke, but I really appreciate being here. Also want to introduce Leslie Stratford. She's on our team. She makes all the magic happen when we're actually working with clients. Running the project plans and implementation, and just really important to make sure she gets credit where credit is due for the work that we do, helping our clients. So Leslie, thank you. And I did bring along one other person for you guys to have a little chat with. Let's see if they're available. And hopefully you don't have one of those meta moments. Anyone see Mark Zuckerberg blow it? Yeah. Hey, good morning, how are you? So I'm with the group at the DSO. I wonder if you can say hello.
Absolutely. Good morning. Of course, I'd be happy to say hello to the DSO group. Hey everyone, welcome. I'm here to help out West with whatever you need, and we're gonna have a good time.
All right, so they didn't give a bio for me, and I'm a bit embarrassed to do that myself, so maybe you can tell the group a little bit about what I do and what GoWest does.
Of course, I've got you covered. So, to give everyone a little bit of background, Wes McDonald here is the founder of GoWest.ai. He's basically your go-to expert in the world of AI consulting, especially for managed service providers and office product dealers. He's been doing this for a while, over 20 years in the industry, helping businesses weave AI into their operations in a way that's actually practical and fun. What GoWest.ai does? In a nutshell, GoWest.ai is all about guiding companies to harness the power of AI. They offer advice on AI policy, help with implementing AI tools, and make sure businesses are set up for success without all the AI fluff. Wes is known for mixing humor and practical insights, so you'll definitely be in for an interesting ride. Hope that helps set the stage. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to add.
Yeah, I did tell the terrible joke, so.
Well, no worries. You know, even a delightfully terrible joke is always a great icebreaker. It definitely gives everyone a smile and sets a nice relaxed tone, so you're all good there. If the DSO group appreciates a little humor, if they're in the right place.
All right. Well, I appreciate you helping out this morning, and we'll talk to you maybe a bit later. So, as fun as that is, the technology, right? And I know as we talk about some of the different opportunities that await you, right, that we are moving into this world where we're going far beyond just the ability to chat with AI, and as you'll see, hopefully in today's presentation, the practicality of that. And before we go any further, anyone notice the shirt that I'm wearing? Were there any of you out there demonstrating this last night? Yeah, yeah, we got a few. All right. So another AI design, has anyone played with the new Nano Banana in Gemini? Oh, so I got a few nods, but not very many. You got to check it out. So write that down, Nano Banana, if you want to have some fun. Michelle, you saw the picture that I posted with Leslie and I at the airport with all the dentists waiting in the, right? So you can have a lot of fun with it. Oh, no click. Oh, sorry. Appreciate you. Oh, we might have the wrong thing in for the clicker. All right, you're a good man. All right. Good number, actually, the reality check. So 95% of AI initiatives and first-time use of the clickers fail, right? Has anyone seen this study? I mean, I hear about it all the time now, right? Because we've been in the AI business specifically now for about 3 years. And I get people calling me, people I've known for years, saying, hey, West, I bet you feel terrible about being in the AI business now. And I'm like, why? And they say, you didn't see that stat? 95% of AI initiatives are failing, right? So there is a study, you can look it up, it's from MIT. And of course, like all things, taken with a grain of salt. It is an important statistic for a few reasons, and by the end of this presentation, you'll understand why, right? So most industries, when you start to look at failure rates with artificial intelligence, as you'll see when we move through this, are because they're taking on opportunities that are just far too big to bite off. So enterprise deployments, right? One of the most common ones that we see outside of this space is somebody will get on the phone with us and say, hey, we need some help deploying Copilot. Anyone in this room ever had that phone call? So deploying Copilot is not just about deploying AI, it's about exposing all of the issues within their permissions base that they have already in their platform, in SharePoint and OneDrive and other areas, right? They don't even know they're there until they turn on AI, because most people don't know where to look for this stuff. But all of a sudden you got Copilot running, and you say, hey, tell me how much West McDonald is making in 2025. And if that document is in there and the permissions are wrong, it comes up and it'll happily give you the answer, right? So there's a lot of those kind of failures which fall into this category, just biting off far too much more than they can chew, and then they shut it down. Permissions is a great example because the work that it takes to get those permissions in order, like to get them to the point where AI is no longer a threat, is massive. So the AI deployment part's easy, but getting the permissions right, making sure that everything's where it should be, is difficult. So we'll talk more about this number. Hopefully everyone will keep it in their, in their mind. All right, so 5-part journey today, and we'll try and keep it as lively as possible. And the good news is they're only gonna have me up here for an hour. I could talk about this all day, but we are gonna look at this in a few ways. First, what's real versus what's hype, because there is a lot of stuff happening in the AI world, like Meta, if anyone saw sort of that demo. Actually, they're all guilty. Salesforce, Microsoft, OpenAI, Claude, none of them are free of this. Sort of pre-launching things that the software is gonna do someday as if it's today, all right? So anyone see the stuff on agentic AI for what, about a year now? How many people in this room are actually deploying a bunch of agents to do their work? Right, so that's what we're gonna try and separate for you. We're gonna look at some success stories. So one of the things that we love to do is some research on the industry at hand and look at some areas where this is already being done, right? And there are some great examples within your space of where some of this stuff is already happening. So we'll talk about a few of those. The next thing is ROI and risk assessment, right? That ROI is always overpromised, and we'll talk about how to really get a realistic view of what that looks like. The second piece is, in this space in particular, you have regulations which a lot of general businesses don't have to worry about, right? So I would assume everyone in this room, I know they're all new acronyms, right? The FDA, right? HIPAA, right? All of these different sort of things that a lot of the general business world doesn't have to worry about, which you do. So we'll talk about some of that. Then we'll get into an implementation playbook, right? So the one thing that we've done now successfully for over 20 years is help businesses to implement new technology paradigms into their business, right? So it's been AI for the last 3 years, but we've been doing this for a long time. So there is a playbook, and you're going to get that playbook. So that'll be talked about today. And then next steps and resources for those that want to continue on the journey, start to look at more AI in their business, that we will have some tips and tricks for you there too. All right, what's real and what's hype? One thing that's really exciting about this space in particular is that AI is really good at looking through a whole bunch of data and coming out with a needle in a haystack. It's so good at it, right? And even before the technology was sort of starting to fly in the dental space and in the medical space for imaging with x-rays and other things, they were using it in SETI research, going through records, spanning back 20, 30, 40 years, looking at data sets that humans and computers simply couldn't crunch, and finding new things in that data, right? AI is really good at that. So how many people in this room today are starting to use more AI in their imaging with their clients? Okay, so not as many as I thought yet, right? It's quite fascinating. We'll talk about how this can help with, obviously, your clients a bit later. The other thing is it has a measurable impact, right? That you can actually look at what has been done with this imaging in the past versus how AI can help, and you can measure the difference. You can actually test that. And one of the examples of the clients that we've had that have done this, you'll see some of those numbers. All right, RCM, so revenue cycle management. I always love learning about new acronyms because although this happens in other industries, RCM is pretty specific as a term to what y'all are doing here, right? Revenue cycle management is one of the hallmarks of where AI is going to make a huge impact. And I can see from some folks in this room that some of that is already being done. We work actually with clients in the medical space One of our clients actually does wheelchairs, power, manual, assistance, things for people with mobility issues, and very complex configurations that have to go to payers. We'll talk a little bit more about that later and how you can actually reduce the amount of time it takes to get that and make sure that that revenue control, that cycle, from the time that you're actually seeing the client to submitting it to the payers to getting reimbursements, how much faster that can be. All right. Patient engagement revolution, I would say that this is one of the newer areas that we're starting to see a lot of stuff, not just here, but in general, right? So one of the things that GoWest does, we do assessments for clients. And typically, the way that we do them is we'll go in to a typical business, we'll look at 3 to 5 departments. We'll interview you, like the people that are running the show, and then we'll interview down a couple, 2 to 3 employees. So if we're doing a 5-department assessment, start thinking about the hours for that, right? That's like 15 to 20 hours of just doing interviews. So we've actually built AI that does a little bit of what we're going to be talking about today, which does some of those interviews for us. So it's a phone number. People call in. It's been trained on the interviews. It's been trained on the questions. So now if we have a 50 to 100 salesperson department, because they say, Wes, we can't possibly get enough information out of the 3 people you're willing to interview because we have national account sales reps, well, we have field sales reps, we have inside sales, we have all kinds of different reps, right? We need help with all of those. So the AI actually does those interviews now. Isn't that crazy? And it pushes back. So if we ask a question like, okay, tell me, what's it like in your position? What do you do? What do you actually do? What's your title? CEO. CEO. Okay, great. Now, in a questionnaire, if you were tired and someone asked you that, you could just type in CEO. But the AI is going to push back now and say, okay, so you're the CEO. What does that look like on a day-to-day basis, right? And this is what's important, is that when we're doing interviews is to get that really back and forth, and AI has the capability to do that now. So we'll start to look at this, how in this industry, that it's going to have a huge impact on the number of people that show up and don't show up, right? So we know that's a problem. I don't know. I mean, as much as I love going to the dentist, I don't think it's most people's favorite thing to do. They'll look for any excuse in the world, a minor family emergency not to have to go, right? So this can have an impact, and we've actually got some stats on how measurable that can be. Also, the ability to have someone engage an AI which doesn't go to sleep at night. It's there 24/7. So if you need someone to answer questions beyond regular hours, how that works. We work with companies that are doing this today. I'll be the first to say that I'm still cautious about handing over the reins to an AI to answer the questions all of the time. But as an assistant, phenomenal. Okay. Robot dentist. Has anyone ever hassled you about this? Like what's happening with robotics and fixing teeth, right? I don't know about anyone in this room, but when I was a child, I was terrified of the dentist. Not because of having to go to the dentist, but because his hands were twice the size of an NFL football quarterback, right? And there's only so much space in this Canadian mouth. So it's difficult, right? So when you start thinking about robotics and the ability to change how we're working on things, maybe that's going to be cool. Maybe it'll be less painful. Maybe it'll be less intrusive. Maybe it'll be whatever, right? So anyone in this room see any big advances in robotic dentistry yet using AI? No. So not something we have to focus on, but it's also important because we need to talk to our customers about that, right? That when they hear about AI and they start looking at things like Elon Musk with his robots and his cars and everything else, that people get terrified of these things that are actually going to somehow take over, that are somehow going to do a job that someone else did. And that's really not what this is about. None of the stuff that we're talking about today is, right? The other is autopilot clinics. So I did say very specifically, I'm okay with like AI doing interviews on our behalf, but I would never let our AI interview a CEO, like ever, right? That's a human to human, sort of job. So as an augmented part of our practice, it's great. But for the fundamental parts of what we do as human beings, it still has to be us. So I'm not a believer in autopilot clinics, right? That where everything is done automatically. But augmented teams, absolutely, right? So anyone in this room, share with me. So hopefully everyone had a good time last night, saw some good music, right? Got a chance to, to be human. And when we're working, the reason we like to go out and do some fun things is because sometimes the work day doesn't always feel that way, right? So there are parts of our jobs which none of us like, which none of us love, right? And show of hands for anyone in this room where every piece of the work you do every day you love. Anyone? Oh, I see one hand. And I see the comedian at the back, right? Yeah. But seriously, right? So if we can use AI to get rid of some of that busy work, is that helpful, right? And will our customers be happier? Will our employees be happier? The answer is probably yes, right? So that's what we like to look for, is those areas of busy work. Okay. Now some examples. And this is where I have to put the disclaimer hat on, because we do not work with any of the people that you're going to see in the presentation. We're not paid by the sponsors. I can see that some of them are actually here. For the DSOs where these things are happening, we didn't work with them, so we have no skin in the game, right? This is what's percolated to the top in your space, what the world sees for what's happening right now in this industry for some innovations with AI. And I will say what was shocking to me is how far back a few of them actually go. Okay, one. NADG, any reps here? Nope, not in the room today? All right. So the North American Dental Group and Overjet, which we do see over there, 200 plus practice implementation in 2023, looking at enhanced patient outcomes using imaging, right? And that really astounds me because I didn't realize that capability was there in 2023, right? So anyone here from Overjet? Not in the room right now? All right. So anyways, hats off to them for actually releasing at that time, which was an earlier time for AI, certainly, right? I know that when we started, Leslie, you can remember just how still untrusted it was. So very early innovation in the space. This one blew me away. Anyone from Heartland here? No? Hopefully not a bad word, but 1,700 implementations in 10 weeks. So any mathematicians out there? My math is bad, but I think in my mind, that says they were doing what, 170, per week in those 10 weeks, right? So an absolutely phenomenal rollout. And some of the strategic goals, the reason that they did it was to actually improve the diagnostic consistency across all locations, right? Some days we have bad days, and I know I can tell you a personal story that the dentist that I go to when they were looking at my images for my x-ray, that I actually had to have a root canal done on a tooth. And they said, no problem at all. So we scheduled it, they got me in there, and I'm on the chair, and I hear, uh-oh. Well, my jaw tilted a bit, and then I heard, uh-oh. Any guesses what happened? Tooth was fractured in 3 places, so they couldn't do a root canal. But the person that was looking at that x-ray didn't see it. So you know what would have seen it? AI, for sure, absolutely, 100%, right? So to be able to identify that, because it would have been much better for me as a patient to go in knowing that and actually having the right procedure done instead of hearing, uh-oh, while I'm sitting in the chair. So anyways. Earlier pathology detection, this is another great area, right? So helping our clients before problems become too bad, right? So to actually be able to look at things that maybe we can't see that the AI can actually see and generate. The other thing is enhanced trust. So the more times we get it right, the more times we get a diagnosis that's going to help them before things are too bad, the more that they actually trust us. So huge one there, 1,700 rollouts across the organization. We do rollouts for clients, and believe me, we've never done anything that big. That's pretty major. Dental Care Alliance, anyone here from there? No? Oh boy, so I've got some that aren't here. 400 practice plus network, right? So kind of in the middle of the 200 rollout, actually having 400 locations. And what was really cool about this one is building study clubs and huddles to make sure that people could actually get used to what they were doing, right? This is the other hard part about this, is that artificial intelligence, other than having a bad rap because people don't understand what it can actually be used for, the second piece is they're terrible in their solutions at sort of defining what it actually does, right? Any ChatGPT users in the room? Okay, quite a few, right? How many people are using the deep research function? Okay, so a few hands. How many people are using the canvas function for editing? Oh, there you go, so we got one. All right. How many people are actually using the custom GPTs to build their own GPTs? All right, ding, ding, ding. I should have brought some maple syrup. That'd be a good giveaway for someone who's getting the most. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, the reason I raise that is there's a lot of really great components to these applications that nobody knows how to use, right? So even when you have it, even when you're using one of these solutions, it's really, really important to really build it into sort of daily life. So when we're having huddles around how we're helping our clients and what we're doing for them, that this has to become a part of it, right? This training for what it actually does. The other thing is standardization, right? And I use this all the time that people say, well, we actually prefer to use a few different things across our clinics. We like to give them independence, right? And how many people hear that in here? Where it's like, we've got a tool, it's tested and true. We don't want to, sort of standardize. See you smiling, because it's a big problem across all industries, right? And one of the things that I ask people is, okay, how many email clients do you want us to let you use? So we're going to mix like Google Mail and, oh, you're using Eudora still from the past, but you like that? Okay, we're going to let you use that? The answer is no, right? Standardization is really critical. So really important, especially with AI, because there are hundreds of solutions that come out every single week, right? So something that does what we're asking it to do, there will be a whole bunch of new ones coming out. And guess what else they do? They make the first try free. They're like drug dealers, right? So you can log in, they'll let you have access to it, they'll have a free version of it, which you don't even have to pay for. So in this space in particular, I would say that is very, very risky and something to avoid. All right, GPS, dental, and video health. I didn't see video health, but video AI. All right, there you go. So raise the roof in the house. So are you with video or one of the DSOs? Great. So you also have a few examples out there which rose to the surface, right? So there is a horse race going on here. And this one's very new. So for GPS Dental, 100+ practices across 28 states. So a lot of work to do, but obviously good work in doing that. Here's why, though. 19% increase in gross production per patient. So who doesn't want that, right? 19% per patient. So that's almost a 20% rise. How many new clients would you have to get, and what would that cost to be able to make up for that 20%? A lot, right? I think it's 100%. Like, it's crazy numbers. So the more we can get out of those existing seats, the better. And a 32% increase in crown production. And I don't know about crowns because I've never had one. Are they expensive? Okay, great. So another perfect revenue source there. All right. Jefferson Dental and Antenna-Peer. And this is more of the kind of the newer stuff that we're starting to, to see out. I think we have some good vendors, here that are doing similar things, right? But IntelliPeer Smart Agent in 2025. So why did this happen with Jefferson Dental? 67% core patient engagement and reduced missed calls. And this is the big one, is that if somebody is calling in to reschedule an appointment and the line's busy, and they don't get somebody and they get a voicemail, what are the odds of them leaving the voicemail to get rescheduled? It diminishes, right? So the less missed calls we can have by using AI to actually get in the middle of that and to help our people. We work with clients actually that for their overnight hours, instead of offshoring overseas now, that they're using AI to handle those calls at night instead. Because it's already an uncomfortable situation already, right? So what do I suffer? Do I suffer overseas because there's communication barriers, or do I use AI locally, which we can train more to sound like our people, and people still may not be as comfortable with people, but for those after hours, you can definitely do those things, right? Patterns of success for this. What we've seen with all of these examples, for all of these DSOs that have already engaged with AI in their businesses, both on the imaging front, and you'll see some more examples of the revenue cycle management and starting to look at how you can actually schedule, reduce missed calls, those kind of things for your clients, is that they approached it from the start as an AI strategy, right? That's the conversation you have to have internally. It shouldn't be which of these providers should we be speaking to. It should be, how is AI going to fit into our strategy in the next 5 years, right? Because once it's built into your strategy, then these pieces, the people around this room that are gracious enough to be here and help you, you'll know much better where they're going to fit into that strategy, right? You need to hold the keys. It's not about an AI platform. It's about your practice as a DSO. So start there. The second thing is pilot to scale. And we see this mistake all the time, where someone will come to us and they'll say, hey, we want you, Leslie, and the team to roll this idea out for us. And we say, put on the brakes. And we've lost contracts to put on the brakes because that's part of our core values. We're not going to do something for clients if we don't think it has 100% chance of working. And they get frustrated because they want to do the whole thing, but you need to pilot. You need to test it. Even if you know another DSO that's doing something that looks like it could be good for your organization, you still need to pilot that yourself internally, right? And you need to find an office, one of your locations, that is progressive enough to actually take the reins and work on this pilot, okay? So think about that. Pilot first, then as it starts to work, then you can start to think about those 1,700 rollouts in some of those other locations. The other thing that we need to always focus on, one of our favorite clients, they're an organization called Pacific Office Automation. They're located in the Pacific Northwest. They do about $450 to $600 million a year in revenue, both for managed services, IT services, et cetera. And the one thing that they said to us, I'll ask the room, when they were thinking of engaging with us, what do you think the one thing that they said was important to us before we move forward? Sorry? I heard somebody. No? Come on. What do you think they said? They have that many employees, that many customers. What's important to them, right? Security, absolutely. But even before security, people. Right? People first. They said, you cannot introduce anything to our company that, one, is going to make our people, our staff, uncomfortable or worried about their work. And you cannot do anything with us that's going to impact our relationship with our clients. So I don't care if it's faster, I don't care if it's cheaper, if it somehow impacts the relationship with our staff and with our customers, it's a no-go. And in this space, that's going to be critical as well. So I would focus all of your measurements around that the patient trust is at the focus of that. So just because you can do something, what movie was that? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Was that Jurassic Park, I think? Dr. Ian Malcolm, for anyone that saw that movie? Yeah, we were so busy thinking about the could, we didn't stop to think about the should, right? And we're definitely in that world with AI, so a real focus there. And the other thing is training. I mean, that's the one thing that we still do, is training with people, right? And we have AI tools to help us to do that, but most of the training that we do is still predominantly working with people to train them. They need that. It's a very fearful kind of space that people are in here. All right. So moving into part 3 of our 5-part session is ROI and risk. And there's great ROI, and there's also great risk, and I want to talk a little bit about that. One of the solutions that we work with in the medical space is a HIPAA-compliant version of ChatGPT. Is anyone in the room, have they worked with a company called Bastion GPT at all? No? Okay. You might want to look them up. And again, we don't represent them, but we had a problem with a customer that needed a solution that was HIPAA compliant, and we ran into 2 of them. 2 of them that were really capable, that hit the radar. The one company that we spoke with said, oh yeah, I know we told you it's $49 a user per month, but for the HIPAA part of it, that's actually an extra $1,000 per month. And we're like, what? So the other partner, Bastion GPT, I went back to them and said, look, you're kind of priced the same on how much you charge per user in the organization. How much for the HIPAA? I was waiting for the shoe to drop. I thought maybe this is just how they operate, right? He said, I don't understand the question. So anyways, they're fair, they're HIPAA compliant, they sign BAAs. These are things that you have to start thinking about, right? So I saw a lot of hands go up for ChatGPT. And obviously for any personal health information, any identifiable information, really dangerous, both from a legal perspective, right? And a confidentiality perspective. So it's really something to think about, and we'll talk a little bit more, about that. Here's some interesting numbers, though. 37% pathology detection increase using AI. That's a pretty significant number, right? Actually being able to discover 30% more times accurately to be able to get to the root of that pathology earlier. The other number is the case acceptance boost. So when we actually let somebody know what that diagnosis is, what we're going to do to help them, that because there's been a scientific approach with artificial intelligence, that the trust level on that diagnosis also goes up, right? At least according to their studies. Okay. For revenue cycle management, transforming claims AI, this is one of the first things that we got engaged with as an organization in the medical community. So as I mentioned earlier, this customer where we help with mobility devices, right? Anyone in the room find dealing with Medicaid or Medicare or any of that stuff fairly easy? No. Yeah, I had no idea how bad it was until we got engaged with this client, right? And like payer denials. So the two things that we worked on for them in that space, one was submission checker, because the one thing that payers are really good at is finding out holes to deny you coverage, right? To say, we're not paying for that, you're wrong. So one is to make sure that that submission, right, is bulletproof. So to make sure that by the time it gets through, someone is going to be shocked and amazed when they looked at it and said, that's the best submission I've ever seen, how can I say no? Barring that, if it does happen, to actually use a platform, to use a tool which actually helps you when you get that denial back, to actually respond back to make sure that when you do the claim again, that you get what you asked for in the first place, right? Really, really powerful, and it works really well. So you can see some of that here. Age claims recovery is another one, so things that are getting forgotten. I forget what the span was, Leslie, that we were looking at for the number of days that they have to respond. Is it 90 days? Does that sound right? Where you have 90 days to respond. And so if you have a backlog of things, then that gets lost. So depends on the payer? So is that like 60 to 90 or?
Well, I mean, medical's different than that.
Aha.
So
Yeah.
depends on the payer. So Medicaid is the fastest you got to respond.
Okay. And what do you see typically? Is that?
I think I mean, it's been a while since I've been in the medical side.
Yeah.
I think it was like 90 days.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And then it starts decrementing the amount of reimbursement.
It does, which is crazy. So that's really important, right? To make sure that for those age claims that we're, taking care of them as soon as we can. So let AI do that. All right. Patient engagement, revenue impact. So on average, from their studies at least, if you look at the Arena case study and analysis, it's a 12% revenue increase, right? On average, for the client. So that's huge to be able to get that. The next piece is the patient trust and perception. So the higher trust reported, this number, be careful with it. It's not that they're, 71% higher trust in the results, right? It's just that 71% of the people that were interviewed for this said that they would trust the diagnosis more because of AI. So it's a bit of a deceiving kind of circle, but that's what it means. 71%, yeah, if there's AI that's being used for that, I would trust it more. All right. Risk to manage and not fear, privacy and HIPAA compliance, right? So there's a few things in our world that we have to deal with on a pretty much a daily basis now. One of them is any of the solutions that you're looking at should be SOC 2 compliant, that the data that's being used back and forth should be encrypted at rest and in transit. I see you nodding your head, right? So kind of some table stakes for security of this kind of information, right? That the providers that you're dealing with should require you, and you should require them to sign a BAA. Is that done in this space, by the way? Okay, great. So that should be a requirement. Like, our company now, we have 3 BAAs in place with different clients, right? And a year ago, we had no idea what that was. So it's absolutely critical. And by the way, be careful, because I have seen things with OpenAI and Microsoft where they said that they are HIPAA compliant with an asterisk. Has anyone seen that? Oh, this is what drives me nuts about the space that we're in. So yes, Microsoft Copilot is HIPAA compliant, asterisk, and then when you follow the asterisk down, you're not going to get them to sign a BAA with you, number one. And number two, the only time it's HIPAA compliant is if you don't use any PHI. All right, so it's HIPAA compliant as long as I don't use it. All right, I got it. So be careful with that. Cultural adoption is a huge one. This is such a big thing, is that people are terrified of AI, right? I'll give an example, which is not from this industry, and it's not from the AI industry that I do today. But in the old days, when we first started doing Business 360 assessments, we would do what's known as a managed print assessment. Has anyone ever had one done for their organization? Yeah? Okay, great. So someone like me would come into your location, and we would map all of your assets, your printers and your copiers and your fax machines. And every single time we went by a desk, the person that was sitting at that desk with a printer almost hugged their device and said, "You're not taking my printer," right? You're the enemy the minute you walk in. And it's the same with AI. Because of all the reports, all the stories, AI is here to take your job. This company fired 1,700 employees and is making more money than they've made in their lives, right? This person reduced their department by this. It's all nonsense. The world that we work in, we haven't yet to work with a single organization that has fired anybody because of an AI implementation. not one. So help your people to understand that's not the reality. Just like news for anything, what you're seeing in the news is not the reality, right? It's the same with these stories that, that come out. So make sure you work with your people on that. Be careful with workflow integrations, because if you get a tool that is really cool and helps you over here, but makes you duplicate data entry for something that you're doing over here, is that good or bad? Bad, right? No data duplication. So if they can't integrate properly with that to take care of that part, don't do it. That's my advice. Be really, really careful with that. The other part is expect to be disappointed, because there are some parts of the workflow integrations which are not going to work the way that you want them to, right? And that's really hard in our world when we go to a client and say, I know that you want to do these 10 things, we can only do 7. And they say, but we want the 10. And I'm like, you're getting the 7. I don't know what to tell you, right? So just be aware that that's going to happen. The other big one is ROI over promising, right? That they will look at your processes. There's the Canadian in me. They will look at your processes and they will say, based on this, we're going to save you this, and isn't that wonderful, right? Our advice has always been, cut it down to 40% of what they tell you. If 40% is a good number, if that looks like whatever you think you're doing, then you can actually make a good decision based on that number. And sorry to any of the partners in here that are going to hate me for that, but that's how we operate, right? In the real world. All right. The question is, and saving maybe the best for last is, how do you make sure that you're part of this 5%? You remember the 95% that we talked about? Everything that we talked about today, the examples that you've seen of other organizations that have already done this are in this 5%. And here's how you do it. Okay, 1, solve a high value problem, right? Not because somebody tells you it's cool, or it could save you money, or it could save you time, but solve that problem. Is it a problem in your organization, right? So I work with an organization. They're actually a publishing organization. They have an editor and 5 people that do writing for this publication. And I could write that for, like, in other words, get rid of those people with AI, because apparently AI can write stuff. By the way, side note, AI is a terrible writer, unless it's trained and handheld. Just because I can replace the editor and his employees, they're doing the writing, is that a high value problem if they're making money and they're having success? The answer is no, right? They're making money. They like the way that the process works. They enjoy their work, so that is not a high value problem, okay? What is a high value problem for them is SEO is crashing now, right? Search engine optimization for a lot of different reasons. And we've heard about this new thing called AO. Anyone know AO or EIO, right? So instead of search engine optimization, it's artificial intelligence engine optimization now, right? Now that is a high value problem for them, because they need to make sure that they're getting the eyeballs on the stuff their people are creating. So can you see where the distinction is? It's find the real problem for you and make sure that it is a really, really high value problem, because then everyone will get behind it. If it's a big problem, everyone will get behind it. The second thing is learn from feedback, right? That it's not always going to work the way that it should. It's not always going to do the things that you want it to, and you need that feedback from your people and from your clients, and be very open to that, right? The next one is integrate as deeply as you can. So if there are integration paths across other tool sets you're already using, so you don't have to duplicate entries, so that you're not having to use 3 different tools for the same thing, make sure you find places to do that. And then choose the right partners, right? This is so critical that you're not going to be making any of these platforms you never have for anything else that you've done, right? At least I don't think you have, right? You're not creating your own, platforms. So make sure you choose your partners wisely. Make sure that they have experience. Make sure that you have other use cases that you can study and other clients of theirs that you can speak with to make sure that they are the right choice for you. And for strategic foundation, make sure that you define the outcomes, that you can actually measure what success looks like. And I know people say this, but it's actually pretty easy to do, right? So if you look at the history of diagnoses, you can actually determine what the miss rates were, and you can compare that with AI. And actually in the presentation, there was one of the examples that we gave where they did just that, where they actually went through the history of those diagnoses and then compared what AI did to improve that. So you can measure that. So just make sure everything you do, that it's measurable, right? Assign some people internally as an AI steering group. This is one thing we recommend to people all the time. You're going to have some keen people across your organization that can actually help you steer this ship, right? You'll meet on a once every 2 week basis for 15 minutes to talk about AI, right? Have that steering committee that helps make those decisions to be able to guide the company forward. And then find someone internally who can be a champion. One person, I guarantee you, is going to be a huge AI enthusiast, right? So anyone in this room like AI, like have actually seen it and said, wow, that's kind of all right. So there you go, you're the new champion, right? Like there are those people in organizations that will take us into the future. And without them, we can only go back. All right. We already talked about the smart pilot strategy, so I spent a lot of time there. We talked about scaling. I want to take you into the last part. All right. Inspire and commit, right? What you really need to start doing is imagining what the future is going to look like and how it's going to be different and really get behind it. Like really get behind it. Because if the people in this room are inspired, if they say, we've seen some things, we're going to start setting a trajectory, we're going to start doing this, and you get excited about it, talk to them about what those things could look like, right? What if we could double check every x-ray at no additional cost, right? What if we could do earlier detection so that our clients actually felt like not only we were treating, but we were preventing, right? What if we could do that more? And what if we could actually help patients to make clear decisions based on the visuals? And I've seen some of the AI stuff where it actually looks in on the x-ray and then color codes it and then talks about what is happening in that section of the picture, right? It's mind-boggling. And it feels very scientific, so it does help, right? So, start thinking on those things and how it can actually help us moving into the future. Just imagine the operations tomorrow, right? That we have all had movements in this room. If it was the birth of the internet and moving into that, if it was the ability of smart technologies and sensors, right, to do different things. I see one over here with Jazz is here again. We actually saw you last year at the other event, right? Blows my mind, the ability to do that now digitally, right? That we have to have that kind of culture of innovation and desire to, to move forward. And next, just think of being able to attract more patients because we are more forward-leaning, right? That there are some areas, we picked up a sign yesterday actually, it said, proud to be a Luddite. Anyone feel like a Luddite in some ways, right? This is not the space to do that. This is not the area to be a Luddite. So people are looking for newer innovations in technology because again, you remember I said earlier, my old dentist with the hands the size of an NFL quarterback, right? Ideas to help make that easier, to make it more likely that I'll sit in that chair. And provider recruitment. We run into this in the office equipment channel all the time, right? They're trying to get technicians to fix copiers and printers, and what do you think the success rate with that is with a 20-year-old? Oh, great, I get to show up and fix a copier? No, but they're introducing AI tools now to do diagnosis on these devices, right? Especially production equipment, and they're getting younger people because of that innovation, because now they're an AI expert, not a technician for a copier, right? So we'll attract more people, more providers. And it's your choice. I'll leave you kind of with this one, that the choice ahead now is literally, when we started in the AI business, people told us we're crazy, right? It has been the best 3 years of my professional life since the birth of the internet, that I can tell you, right? And it will bring you some of the same in your organizations if you actually embrace it and learn about how to use these technologies. Or don't, just wait and watch. And we've seen organizations that do that as well. People that I would call friends that I've known for 25 years in different channels, right? Waiting and watching, and then realizing it's too late when one of their competitors is gobbling up their business. Document management was a great example, right? Being able to search things with AI, like your document repository, is absolutely unbelievable. So get excited about that. If anyone wants, I'll give you a couple other things before I get off the stage and leave you alone, is that we built this entire presentation using AI, built on a study that we first built. So we actually did, I think it's about a 45-page study on this channel and what's happening in the space. And so that's available to you now. You just have to get in touch with us and we'll send that to you for free to be able to have that, that department. The photographs of me obviously are not me at all, right? That they're all AI. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can use AI in your business practices beyond even the stuff that's related to what you're doing specifically as a DSO. So, be curious. What I would leave you with is, if you leave here with one thing today, does anyone feel a little more curious and less skeptical? I hope so, right? So I see some hands. That's what I would encourage you to do. Be more curious and less skeptical, and just get ready to have fun with your business in the future with AI. So appreciate you all having us, here today.